Let's say it. On welcome to the weekend, Liverpool gonna win.
See, I obviously having watched Liverpool play on Tuesday, and I know it will be a different team that plays Arsenal on Sunday, and it's at Anfield, but I can't. I don't know if I can see Arsenal going to Anfield and losing, just in the form Arsenal are in, the form Liverpool are in. But I know it's Anfield, and anything can happen.
I just think Anfield is a different place.
Nobody's asking me, but I'm going to volunteer this opinion. Liverpool don't lose this game. Liverpool do not lose this game. Massive game on Merseyside this weekend. We sent Io on the road. He's at the Royal Albert Dock on the River Mersey. Exactly what are you doing there, though, Io?
Oh, good to hear from you guys. Yes, and I heard you, man. I heard you. Maybe Arsenal will get a little something. I don't know. We're just keeping it quiet for now. But yeah, I'm actually at Jurgen's Beer House, as you can see. And this bar celebrates everything Liverpool, as you can tell. Look, European champions, Premier League champions under the big man himself. Obviously, that's not a real Premier League cup. This is their special cup. Has brought wonderful glory to Liverpool. And for that reason, it feels kind of weird to say that, Liverpool have got now 10 games to save their season or finish. And, you know, at this current state, this team is in 8th position. Current results really haven't gone their way, but I know a lot of Liverpool fans are definitely holding on to that 7-0 beating against Manchester United. Merv, Stuart and Gareth here. Look, big Liverpool heads. Let's talk Jurgen Klopp. Let's talk about where Liverpool are at this point in time. Last time we spoke, you didn't see this coming. No. What's the feeling amongst fans right now?
It's a tough one. And I mean, think about the last time we had a tough season, a couple of seasons ago during COVID, there was a lot of injuries and it was kind of like everything was based on the injuries. Now we're seeing some of our best players not look like themselves anymore. We're seeing people who've not made mistakes over 5 years started to make mistakes, including the manager. And it's a tough one to take, but I don't think anyone here is under any illusions that he's still the man to turn it around. He's done it before, and I'm sure he'll do it again.
Yeah, Gareth, it's always quite interesting watching those sort of post-match interviews with Jurgen Klopp at the moment. He looks somewhat bewildered. Doesn't quite know what he can do to turn this team around. From a fan's perspective, what can he do?
Between now and the end of the season, I'm not too sure. Yeah. I think the answer comes in the summer, in the transfer market. I think you know, there are a lot of players who are heading out in the summer. There are a lot of players who need to look at themselves in the mirror for the performances this season, and they may well go out the door as well. And there's now, for me, the focus should be more on the owners than Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool needs to spend big. And when Liverpool have spent big under Jurgen Klopp, he's pretty much always got it right. There might be 1 or 2 signings where they haven't spent so much money and you say, well, that hasn't worked, but the big money signings have tended to work. And Liverpool need to spend big this summer. Yeah,
it's always interesting, though, whenever people talk about teams' current forms, people always say the manager, but, I mean, you've got big boys like Virgil van Dijk on that field, you've got Mo Salah on that field, you know, obviously Gakpo is still trying to find his way, Nunez as well, you wanting to prove a point as a big marquee striker that they bought. I mean, the players have to take a bit of responsibility here as well, right?
They do. I mean, I feel sorry for Nunez and for Gakpo, the new guys, because if you think about the last season's team where Luis Diaz came into, it was a fantastic team, playing really well, and he was able to hit the ground running. For them two, it's been the opposite. They've had to fight to find their place in a team that's kind of fighting to find its own place. But I think we've seen enough from both of them to say that once the team starts clicking again, they can be part of the future. And yes, it always feels bad now, but I'm always positive, you know me, I'm always positive. And I look at Arsenal and look at where they were last season compared to where they are now. Like Gareth says, a couple of new guys in, freshen up the group and we can start hitting games again.
Okay, big one, but you know, Arsenal come here this weekend. What are we thinking? Very quickly.
Well, Arsenal have been absolutely brilliant. Done a great job this season, but Liverpool have been pretty good at home. Only lost to Leeds United at home in the league. Still being all right. I think Liverpool can get a result.
Okay, we'll be talking more about this game a little later on. Back to you guys in the studio.
Yes, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, Liverpool are good at home, but Arsenal are top of the league. But I fancy us still.
I fancy, but I don't. Who do I fancy out of you two on this quiz? Because I'm the quiz today.
No. I was trying to stall for time.
Remember, guys, free questions. Remember to look for the clue between the connection between all of them. Yep. Okay, question 1. I'm a former centre-back and club captain who became the first player to reach 200 Premier League appearances for Stoke City. Who am I?
What position?
Centre-back.
I mean...
I know his name.
Liz always got an answer, but whether it's the correct one...
Are you looking for the name?
I think so, yeah, I think so. You guys got that, yeah?
Yeah.
Ah. Right, whilst JJ takes ages to figure out the answer for that, Aston Villa host Forest tomorrow, and Kyle's 5...
Earlier on, let's start with the big man himself, Virgil van Dijk. I'll start with you on this one, Mo. Seems to have lost his powers post-injury. Yeah. Such a stalwart at the back there for Liverpool, globally, probably the best defender at one point in the world. What's happened?
It's tough. I think there's been a lot of things. Like you say, the injury itself. When he came back from that injury, he pretty much played every game last season. And it probably made us all think, oh, well, he's fine, he's back. And he's always had this kind of aura of being Superman, like, you know, being larger than life, being able to do all these things. So you just assume that, OK, most people take a bit of time coming back from an injury like that. But he's Virgil, so he doesn't need to. And now this season, we're seeing the payoff of that, where he is actually a human being and he does need a bit more time and rest. And we're getting to that period where it's like, he's getting towards the end of his career. He's got to look after himself a little bit better. He's got to maybe realise his limitations. What we're seeing on the pitch, though, is a little bit harder to kind of gauge, because when he was at his best, a lot of his defending was what I call non-defending, where it's like, he's there, so he doesn't have to, the attacker's not going to have to do anything, so he can just kind of block them. Now he's actually having to do stuff, and it's hard. And I think that we've been so dependent on him and his presence within the whole defence. You take that away, and a lot of other people don't really know what they're doing and know how to kind of lead a defence. So it's going to take a lot of kind of getting used to, but he's not dead. He just maybe needs to not play literally every game possible.
He needs to play every game of the season. Let's talk about another player. You know, yet again, a baller, really, in the earlier parts of his career. People forget the amount of games Trent Alexander-Arnold has played for Liverpool, because he broke into the team super early in his career. Seems to have dipped off a little bit. His defending's always been questionable. Attacking-wise, crossing the ball, can't complain. Yet another player that you probably feel needs a bit of competition just to step up his game, no?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's only 24 years old. You mentioned the number of games he played, 263 games, 24 years old, already won everything pretty much that you'd want to win in the game. I think there's been like a collective mentality issue at Liverpool this season, and he's been part of it. You've just seen them knock off a little bit, whether it's physical tiredness, whether it's mentally they're not quite there. They need a bit of a reset, and he's definitely part of that. I just wonder the way the season started. We lost a lot of games early on, and we were out of the title race early pretty much. And I think all the cards then fell over from there on in. They're used to challenging for a title, including Trent, including Virgil. Knowing that they were out that early, I think affected them all. Hopefully, and I'm praying, when the new season starts and there's a chance again to go for the big things, I think we see a bit of a reset with the likes of those players.
Yeah, good to hear, good to hear. And you've got to think, if Liverpool do then bring in new players, there's another sort of trying to figure out who plays where, how they play well together. And we could talk about this all day. I've never spoken about Liverpool so much in my life.
Have you enjoyed it?
I'm kind of liking it, actually. Anyway, back to you in the studio.
Nice one, Io.
Thank you, Io. Now, guys, there's only 20 minutes left of the show, but here's what we've got in store for you.
You know, massive clash. Could be a Premier League title-defining clash, some might say. Mo, Gareth, let's get into this. It's a massive one. Obviously, Anfield is still a fortress for Liverpool. Let's not forget a very recent result against Manchester United. Very superbly good result. Can Liverpool hold the fort when Arsenal come here on Sunday?
It's going to be a tough one, because this is a better Arsenal team than we've seen. And the thing is, for Liverpool, we've seen Arsenal teams talk up their chances before at Anfield and come here and get smacked down. And I know you know this. But I do genuinely think that this team has got a little bit more stability, a little bit more solidity about them. They've got the ability to come back when they've been down. So I think they're a tougher proposition. But as you say, when we're at home in a big game, it tends to be when we show up. And I do think this will be another one of those games. I think that we've got, because of the history of the fixture, we've got more chance than you would say against a team at the top of the league, considering how we've played this season. It's going to be a tough one. I don't know which way it's going to go, genuinely.
OK, fair enough. Gareth's come to you. Look, 10 games left. Liverpool currently 8th. Mathematically, top 4 is still feasible, because let's face it, Tottenham aren't the most consistent team. Man United even aren't the most consistent team. I'm looking at Liverpool, Brighton. They're really, not Liverpool, Newcastle, Brighton. They're doing incredible football right now. There is no easy fixture in the Premier League. Real talk. Can Liverpool do this?
I've got to say, look, I'm an optimistic Red, but Liverpool have lost 14 games all competitions this season. Their best run of wins all season long is 3. And then after those 3 wins, we went away to Nottingham Forest and lost. I just don't think it's in them. I really don't, unfortunately. I think we've got results in us now and then. I quite fancy us at the weekend against Arsenal, but I think we'll go and do something daft against the team you'd expect us to beat. That's the problem. It's been the problem all season long. I think the players and the managers, they all look like people now who want to go and have a holiday. And I'm the same. I'm quite looking forward to Sunday, but I'm quite looking forward to the season being over and we have to reset and start again.
OK, Mo, Gareth, thank you very much. I guess the silver lining is it doesn't look like Liverpool are going to get relegated, so maybe resetting is the way forward.
It is a huge game for both sides. Psychologically, though, as we saw right at the top of the show, Anfield is a place where Arsenal haven't got the best results in recent years, Izzy. Psychologically, as players, will they go to Anfield fearing Liverpool, even though Liverpool aren't in the best form right now?
Oh, that's an excellent question, because we've seen in the past that Mikel Arteta has prepared his team to play Anfield by putting the Anfield noise and You'll Never Walk Alone on the speakers at the training ground to try and make the players sort of accustomed to the atmosphere at Anfield. But I tell you what, it's one thing preparing for it, but it's another thing being there. And the atmosphere, when it generates inside that stadium, is unbelievable. And that is something which I think the Arsenal players this season will better cope with than in previous years, because I feel like they've all just grown under Arteta's management, and Arteta's grown as well. We've seen he's had some pretty excitable moments on the touchline at Anfield, hasn't he? Let's say the least, with Jurgen Klopp. And I just feel like he's definitely matured since.
That we've seen Liverpool put past Arsenal in the last few years, Sam. What do you think we can expect from them tomorrow? Do you expect this to completely reverse?
From Liverpool? Yeah, I do expect it to reverse. I think Arsenal will be too good. In terms of like the atmosphere and dealing with it once you're there versus preparing for it, I'm wary of making everything I talk about City reference, but I've been at Anfield for big games against City. And Gary Neville always says, you've got to ride out the first 20 minutes. And if you do, and City do that by keeping the ball and keeping Liverpool at arm's length, it does quieten the crowd down. And also, I think the crowd will be going in. They might be whipped up at the start, but I think with the whole situation around Liverpool at the moment, there's not that bite in there like it would be if it was a title challenging game against City. So I think if Arsenal go, they start well against a team that aren't really at their standard, well, they're nowhere near their own standards. The fans are a bit unsure, but I think within 15, 20 minutes, you could see Arsenal bossing it, and then Arsenal rack up the goals from there. I don't know about rack up the goals. I'm not saying they'll get 3 or 4, although maybe in the predictions I did say they'd get 3. But I think Arsenal have really grown, and obviously Liverpool have dropped off quite a bit. And if you put those two things together, I can only see Arsenal doing it.
The only thing is, though, is that we've seen Liverpool this season, as Sam said, not being anywhere near their best. That's clear to see. They're 8th in the table as things stand, and obviously Arsenal are top. But when Liverpool haven't been at their best, they've still put 7 past Manchester United just a few weeks ago. So I'm not comparing Arsenal to Manchester United, but they clearly have the ability to turn it on for certain games.
Yeah, they do. That's right. And I think that what I'm seeing from this Liverpool side this season especially is just inconsistency. Like I say, they've put 7 past United, but they're failing to pick up points elsewhere. And I just think the midfield has changed for Liverpool. I'm a midfielder myself and analyse the midfield a lot when I'm watching football. And I'm just looking at the way the dynamics work, and I can see, to go off what Sam said, if the Arsenal midfield get working tomorrow when they play against Liverpool, I just feel like they're going to overrun Liverpool in midfield, and that's where the chances are going to create. And I can't help but think Martinelli is going to get the best of Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back if he plays. And I just think that generally speaking, Arsenal's structure and their system is going to be too much for Liverpool.
Well, if he plays is a really interesting point, because in the last match, Jurgen Klopp made a fair few changes. That's not something that's been characteristic of Jurgen Klopp in the start of the season, perhaps. Obviously, the last couple of games, he has changed things a bit. Salah and Gakpo were both on the bench to start, as was Trent Alexander-Arnold. Do you expect all of those players to come back in for this?
It's difficult, isn't it? Because, like you say, it's not something he normally does. And also, over the years, even when they were at the top, they didn't even years ago when they were really at the top, when the bench was like Minamino and Shaqiri, they were fine for the last 20 minutes, half an hour, but he never rotated too much at the start of the game and never really had to. And they always managed it really well. But now it just seems to have got to the stage where there's an element of, well, they just played Man City and then they've got another game. So it makes sense, sports science-wise, to make those changes. But it just feels like Klopp's thinking, well, what can I try now?
Yeah.
Like other managers, because he said, didn't he, before the game, the elephant in the room is, I've not been sacked. But like with other managers, you get sacked before you have to try plan X or whatever. It feels like what he's up to now. It's like, okay, well, if I just change everyone, we'll see what happens. But it didn't really work anyway, because I thought they should have lost against Chelsea.
Part of the wider problem, what I think at Liverpool is fatigue. And I don't mean that by numbers. I don't think the amount of sports science that's used in the game now, stats are used to sort of gauge players' performances and what they can go and do week on week. But like Sam said, they've had to rotate because the players are fatigued and not able to sustain that sort of high-intensity press that we've seen from Klopp so often.
Yeah, you mentioned a minute ago about the midfield. So I'm guessing Virgil van Dijk being available and coming back into the side for the game on Sunday probably doesn't make all that much of a difference if midfield is where their real issue is.
Well, if we're being really critical, Van Dijk's definitely not been himself this season, and that's been a key feat of how Liverpool have been so secure at the back with the back four and the communication of Van Dijk into the midfield. And Fabinho, he's not working.
Yeah,
he looks really out of place, and you kind of think, well, if you take Van Dijk out of the side for injury or whatnot, you go, OK, well, how's Fabinho going to function? And Fabinho's performance has dropped. So it just seems something isn't quite right there. And my opinion is that I think it's fatigue.
From an Arsenal perspective then, Sam, obviously they're absolutely desperate to win this title this season and not drop any points between now and the end of the campaign. There isn't long left. With this match, if they win it, is that pretty much the title done? No?
No way. How could it be? How could it be?
I guess on paper,
there's still so many games to go.
On paper, this game and the Man City game on the 26th of April are the two biggest games.
If they were to beat
left.
City, then you think, OK, because then, presuming the gap stays as it is, even if City get down to 5, but then Arsenal win and it's 8 points with a few games to go, they're obviously much closer to it. But they can't win this and then think that's it over. You would have to say from the outside, they've passed another big test, like a major test. But they've got difficult games to come. And, we've seen this with title races, not so much in the past because City and Liverpool have just taken it to incredible levels, but normal title races before this City and Liverpool era, teams would lose in like April and May, and that would be normal. But recently, you think if a team drops points, that's it. There's so long to go, and, we're so accustomed to going back to like 7 or 8 years ago when City won it on the Pellegrini. They lost at Anfield, and everyone was like, oh, that's it, that's the title wrapped up. Because that was like middle of April. And then obviously the Gerrard slip happened and all that kind of stuff. Mad stuff happens in title races.
Well, aside from the fact that we've seen Manchester City do it before, let's just park that for a second because we're going to come on and talk about Man City in a minute. But from an Arsenal side of things, have you seen any warning signs that the fans should be worried about, that they are going to slip up?
No.
Well, I keep thinking, next fixture is going to be a warning sign, and then they overcome it.
Yeah.
So for me, they're ticking every single box at the moment. When you think they're under every test against the opposition.
It was that Villa one, wasn't it? Just after the City game.
Exactly. And I think the only fear that Arsenal can have, and it's not one specific game, but it's just the whole concept of being chased by City. And if you're being chased by anyone, you don't want to be chased by City because of the mentality at that club.
And at the moment as well, they're boosted by having Gabriel Jesus back and straight back into the starting 11 and scores 2 goals as well.
They've got everything going for them, and the only reason to think they might not win the league is like just this. Well, this may happen. They may fall apart. They may not be used to the title pressure. The closer it comes, the more nervous they get. But people have been saying that, thinking it would happen in January, February, March. Now we're in April. It hasn't happened yet.
But you look at those moments like with Jesus being out injured for such a long period of time and you go, well, who's going to score the goals?
Yeah. And
Nketiah.
Yeah.
He came in and he's done excellently well, and it just goes to that is the signs of a title winning team.
OK, let's focus on Manchester City next. They go to Southampton